Welcome everybody. Today we're going to do a hybrid mesh sculpture. Basically, we're going to find a couple of things from grabcad.com or Thingiverse or things.com or any place with STL files or meshes. And we're going to select things that we can combine or reimagine, and we're going to use our mesh commands to make this happen. So from these two separate parts, these two separate files, I've reimagined a very hulkish but gentle figure like that. The gentle Hulk. So, all right, I've got a closed mesh and another closed mesh, and here's how I'm going to get this started. First, I'm going to rotate the Hulk arms 180 degrees, and they're connected back here by this little ring, which is probably meant for stability for printing. I need to separate that, so I'm going to get a rectangle and turn it into a plane. Of course, it has to be a mesh in order to interact with the mesh objects. So I'm going to, let's see, maybe turn this just 90 degrees for now. I could situate the plane across the span of the arms and just cut the back of the ring off, but there may be other things I have to do to edit these arms. So I would rather just cut one arm completely off, modify the other one, and then mirror if I need to. So first, I'm going to use mesh mesh trim. I'm going to select my cutting object. That'll be the plane. And then I'm going to choose to get rid of this arm over here. And then enter to finish the command. And while I've got this plane here, I may as well drive it back towards the arm a little bit more and just cut off any excess. I don't want to make a really complicated hole though. That's probably good. So mesh trim again. Select my plane, and then we'll click on this portion here. And now I can get rid of this plane. And remember, when you do mesh, like split, mesh trim, anything like that, often you're going to get some little holes, which maybe we could see it better in this mode, yeah. So this will have to be fixed because only closed meshes, closed poly surfaces, closed meshes, closed curves, these are the more functional kinds of geometry that are suitable for printing. So the command fill mesh hole, all one word, is going to prompt me to choose a mesh edge. And there we go. And now if I choose this, one closed mesh added to selection. Fill mesh hole is a wonderful trick. It doesn't work perfectly every time. If you wind up trying to close a mesh and it continues to remain open, you can always use the shrink wrap command. So pretend that this is open, like it's an open mesh. The command shrink wrap will allow us to, we've done this together in class once or twice. it wants to know a target edge length. So just like the actual plastic wrap, the more, like, the higher this number is, the more shrink wrap we're wrapping around something. So the shrink wrap itself is a very dynamic layer of mesh, and it's going to completely wrap around and close an object. But if you need to retain some definition, you don't want this number to be too big. So if I go down to 0.02 for my target edge length, and I pull that out of there, let's take a look at this. So very low number for the target edge length, and you conserve some, you just retain definition a lot better. Now, let me get rid of this. Let's do another shrink wrap on this. Shrink wrap, and this time I'm going to use point, no, I'm just going to use, no, yeah, 0.8 or something like that. Let's look at the difference here now. Okay, so higher number, more shrink wrap around the object, and consequently we lose some definition. So, all right, so I've got one arm. Let me return to the rendered mode, and I'm gonna start driving these into position. Let's see, we need to go 90 degrees. Well, it doesn't have to be exact. I'll just, at this point, I can move things free form. This arm might be a little bit, I think giant arms is hilarious, but I don't want it to tip over. So maybe a little smaller here would be good. So if I grab a hold of any one of these boxes, so the scale 1D boxes on the gumball, and hold shift, this will uniformly rescale that object. Let's see. All right. Getting there. Okay, that seems to be about right. Of course, you can you can definitely tell these are two different models, but that's okay. It's part of the idea. All right, so I'm gonna mirror this arm now with the mirror command, and my plane is gonna be sort of in the middle of this figure. So if I click here, and then I can hold shift as always to keep things really straight. Let's see. This way. Okay. So at this point, I'm ready to mesh, Boolean union, and I'll add all three of these to that union and give it a second. Now, when I click on any one part of this, they should all highlight. Good. All right. I'm still worried that this base, this little pedestal, is too small to, adequately balance and support all of this. Support is not going to be a problem because we're just 3D printing little sculptures. But to keep it balanced and upright is, I think, the real trick here. So I'm going to reimagine now this form here. I kind of did it over here, and everybody may wind up having to do not just combining meshes in clever or funny ways, but also rebuilding certain structures to make it a either functional or balanced or just able to support its own weight. So, all right, I'm going to do some 2D geometry here. In this viewport, I want to kind of consider this outline just on one half because I'm going to redraw something similar to this and then revolve it. So I need in curve tools, I'm going to start with a single line and then one more single line coming to the left, and then a control points curve. Sometimes when you need interpolate points or control points curves to work in conjunction, but you don't want just one continuous control point curve, you can stop the generation of one curve and then just start the next one at the previous endpoint. I think wide base, that's what I'm going for. So let me push this control point in a little bit further like this. And then if I come back, I need to know how this happens. So it swoops up to the right and then it curls back in one more time. So back to control points curve. Okay, that looks all right. And then there's just like a very simple column that extrudes upwards from there. So I'll just do one single line up at the top. And I know it may be exaggerated, but I'm going to pull this control point a little bit to the left. All right, now to revolve a curve like this into a surface, we need a good revolve axis. So I'm going to get that ready by first accounting for the very bottom of that structure and then deciding where the axis is supposed to be. I think probably right about here is good. So I'm going to let these come to a 90-degree angle. Use the trim command to get rid of this portion over here. And then the trim, let's see, do I need the trim command again? No. So I can just have these two now. And then I'm going to join all of these separate curves because it's going to be easier to manage if I do that. So I'm going to grab both of these items, rotate them 90 degrees so that they're standing up. And then in rendered mode, there is sort of an imaginary floor, and if anything is below that floor, it won't be visible. For example, if I push this down, well, I guess it does it with curves. If I push this curve down, yeah, suddenly we can't see the curve. I guess meshes behave a little bit differently. So let's see, revolve is the command we need now. Revolve. And we're going to revolve this curve right here. We're going to use this as the axis. And then I'm just going to type 360 for the revolution. And there's our surface. I can get rid of these curves. And now I just need to use surface from planar curves, which is in the surface tools set, to build an upper surface and a lower surface. Okay, So now this has to scale down quite a bit. So again, I'm going to hold Shift and then click and drag on one of these squares on the gumball. And then just drive this into position. Probably have to scale a bit more. Although, let's see, I might have to uniformly scale it down a bit and then just scale it without holding Shift so that it becomes a bit shorter. Here. And let's see, almost there. Okay. Right. Well, that'll work. So one more, oh, I need to turn this into a mesh. So mesh in the command bar. And whenever you turn something into a mesh, um, you may get that poly surface as well. Like the poly surface won't delete automatically. So you'll have to select it and delete it or move it or hide it or something. So now we can do mesh Boolean union. And let's add that to our sculpture now. All right. So if I click on any one part, everything should highlight. And now this is ready to send over to Ultimaker Cura. And I'm going to export it by selecting it, go to File, Export Selected. And I need to make sure that I, save it in a place that I'm familiar with and change its file extension to .stl stereolithography. And I'll call this um, um, oh, I don't know, gentle giant. Okay, so now that STL will be importable in Ultimaker Cura, and then you can print.